another Simon on the sofa, transformational, transparent conversation. And some of you maybe or already recognise the wonderful man I'm sat next to, Steve Nobel. Hey Steve.
Hi Simon.
We're familiar to the sofa now, and I've often captured Steve, at different parts of my own journey, this journey of truth and love. And if you haven't seen the conversations with Steve already, do please go and watch them, and you'll get a real essence of if not from this conversation, from the other talks that we've also done. So today, I'm doing a couple of things with Steve, and this conversation, Steve chose, proposed a topic, and we're going to start at that base. So the topic was, Steve?
It's personal and global transition.
Personal and global transition.
All right. It's a juicy big one.
It's a juicy big one. Okay, so do you want to
kick off?
Kick off, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we all know about change, right? We all go. Life is about change, isn't it? But I didn't really understand transition till about 5 or 6 years ago. I started running seminars on transition. Just the whole idea is that a transition is different to change because something happens in the world that fundamentally changes you on the inside. So your outer life changes, your inner life changes. So for an example of change would be you change your toothpaste, your girlfriend, your job, and who cares? Nothing's different. But a transition is something happens, your girlfriend leaves you, or you change country and something massive shifts on the inside. Something awakens, you open, you go on a journey. So for me, that's what transition is all about. And I kicked off my own last big transition in 2010 when I had a pretty good life, was a director of alternatives and had a great partner, and we lived in a great home. But then I met someone and my whole life exploded. And boom, home went, partner went, and then eventually the job went. I resigned from alternatives, so everything went. And I was left feeling, who am I? What am I doing? Where am I going? What have I done? And all that kind of stuff, just all in the melting pot. And in it was a very difficult journey, actually. I think I got tested. Sometimes these transitions test you in the most profound ways. You're on the rock face, and there's a chasm. You think, can I make it? And you've got to make it or die, So in that journey, I think I faced a lot of stuff about myself, stuff I thought I dealt with over 20 years of personal development and spiritual, retreats and all that. I had what I thought was a Kundalini awakening, one of those kind of things which I've read about this, oh my God, what is this? And that was part of the kicking off phase as well in the early stage of 2010. I had this experience, and I remember laying in bed at night with my hands shaking going, oh my God, I did a tantra breathing exercise with this person over Skype, and I thought, Skype, it's all right, and it just blew me up. My energy fields blew up, and my whole life blew up. And but underneath that, I'm writing this book called Big Transitions to understand this process of what happens when life just kind of goes completely pear-shaped. That is not the only kind of transition you have. You can have transitions where you actually step towards a dream which is way outside your zone. But that's a different kind of transition. There are two types. So in this book I'm writing about these, what I call the rough and the smooth transitions.
Yeah.
And I think in terms of spiritual context, every great teacher has gone through this process. If you look at Jesus, he just went out in the desert and then got tempted, and then he came back and he started off his mission of preaching the New Testament, you could say. He didn't look at it that way, but and then there was Buddha, who just went out and again sat under the Bodhi tree and said, I'm not getting up until I awaken, faced was it the demon Mara, was it, and then awoken from that. So it's all this thing about facing your deep shadow, going into the wilderness, and then coming back. And that, I think, is the process of awakening that's really happening for people. I mean, you can go to spiritual workshops, and these are all well and good, and you can kind of understand yourself. But when the spiritual awakening process happens, it's almost like it grabs you, and it shakes you, and then it puts you on a path you're meant to be on.
Yeah.
You understand that one, do you?
I understand that one. I do understand that one well.
You're in the book.
I'm in the book, yeah. And funny enough that is, I think what you just described there is actually so many people, what so many people sometimes are even now seeking, which is some kind of crazy. So, for example, that those transitions, you're not in control of them, are you?
No,
you're not in control of them. It's not like you've gone. Because, for example, when I share the story that that's happened for me, as you know, in 2007, I had one of those. People were telling me what it was. You mentioned Kundalini awakening. People told me, "Oh, you had a Kundalini awakening," and I'm like, "Okay, well, I don't know what that is, but have I?" And then other people, "Oh, you've had this." And then now when people meet me or they watch the story, they say to me, at what point did it happen? You know, what was the experience that happened? And I'm like, I have no clue how this unfolded. I can sort of give you reference points or share little things. All I know is I was heading, if I was planning anything and pointing anywhere, I was definitely heading in my mind that way.
Yeah.
It seemed to have a sort of a vision attached to it of like what it may or may not look like. And then something sort of said, no, sir.
Yeah. That way.
That way.
Yeah,
you see
that's
what I mean?
typical. That's very typical.
And,
you know.
and here and in fact, that's what's brought me very much to even having you in my life, talking to you, the first conversations, you know, alternatives, you know, the path that you know, many people when I was going on this journey, they'd say, oh, have you should go to Alternative and check out the talks, or have you spoke to Steve yet? I remember when I first met Stuart Pearce, for example, who, as you know, has also spoken on the sofa a couple of times. You was, I think, one of the first people that Stuart Pearce said, oh, you should meet Steve.
Right.
Do you see what I mean? So it's like, what happens when you go on that journey is it's like you said, you do get thrown into the unknown, but you also get little messengers along the way, don't you?
Yeah.
You know, it's like things pop up that if you don't resist it, because I resist, you know, you do resist it, don't you? And I mean, for the last 5 years, I'm still going, I was supposed to be an A-class professional actor. I was going to be Johnny Depp, Brad Pitt. I just got myself into a big movie. I was going to make millions of pounds in movies, and it's like, well, actually, the world doesn't look like that. And I don't mean the world doesn't look like you can do big movies. What I mean is, it said there's a lot more going on here that I don't think you was looking at.
Yeah.
And that's what it did it for me. Do you see what I mean?
Well, I think there's something deeper in our lives, isn't there? There's something deeper. Our mind might go, that sounds cool, or even we might feel, oh, I like the look of that. There's something deeper in our lives that know why we're here, I think, or this is what I believe anyway, that I believe we've come here for a reason. We've come here to you know, there are certain, you could say, life lessons we go through, but certain things we come to awaken, like people call it inner potential, which is kind of a vague term. But that thing about inner potential, you never know it until you step on a path where it actually can. You need to pull it out of you somehow. It's almost like somebody puts a gun to your head and says, sing or write the book now, and you go, okay. It's a bit like that. And so these rough transitions are meant to do that, because they're pulling out, like, you know, I've written 2 books in practically two to 3 years. During, you know, and I wrote my previous 2 books over 10 years. So that transition pulled out, come on, you know, get it out, and you've got to do it. And it felt, I remember going to my computer, and actually when I was going through this transition, writing that book was the only thing that made sense. Everything else was collapsing, falling away, you know, and I'm going, I don't know what's happening in my life, but being a writer is the only thing that makes sense. And that is what the transition was opening. And so since then, not only have I written a book and writing the second book, I've started all these writing workshops and retreats, and somehow they're happening. Now, 2 years ago, I'd have thought, there's no way on this earth. I'm a director of turn. I know what I'm doing. I'm living with this woman. I'm in this home. I'm not going to go traipsing around the world teaching people writing. What do I know about writing? You know, that was my thinking. So the rough transition kicked my ass out there. But I mean, I've experienced the smooth as well as the rough. You know, I've, you know, like you must have stepped out your zone and go, I'm a bit scared, but I'll do it. And that opens up a whole new journey. That's the smooth way. Smooth meaning less friction, but with the rough, there's a lot of friction.
And smooth meaning, to throw in there, that you're choosing it. Like, for example, for example, when I come out of being a criminal and wanting to be an actor, there was some challenges, but I really wanted to be an actor. It was like, it was a lot smoother to go, I'm going to say goodbye to that world. Still had its little, you know, holes and pullbacks, you know, but in general, it was like very much, I wanted it. Whereas this one was very much like,
that's the difference. One is you choose it. I mean, even leaving a marriage could be a smooth transition, even though it's tough, because you choose it. I'm leaving this marriage and I'm saying goodbye consciously, and there's challenges, but that's a smooth one. Because that leads you onto another journey. But the rough one is where the universe picks you up, kicks you, shakes you, and throws you, and you go, whoa. And I never knew that was possible till 2010. I didn't know that, but it felt like, you know, if you've ever been out in sea when a current's got you, I don't know if you've ever done that.
I have, actually, definitely.
Do you know that feeling?
What you mean when I was swimming back from some rocks once, and I was swimming, but I wasn't going anywhere.
Exactly. That's it. I was in the Gold Coast of Australia, and I was swimming out, and the friends waving, hi, bye, and then I started swimming back and thinking, nothing's happening, and it was pretty. Actually, I was going out, and I thought, oh my God. the sea's got me, and I had no strength to beat it.
Yeah,
you know?
it's a great example.
So I prayed, and actually what happened, the wave threw me back on the shore, and I went, whoa. But that was the example of a rough transition when the universe picks you up, and you just can't do anything. There's nothing you can do. It's like the Hangman tarot card, you know. The more you struggle, the more you're going to suffer. All you can do is accept and surrender, and that sounds crap advice.
Yeah.
But if you're in a rough transition, just accept, because the current knows where it's going. The wave knows where it wants to take you. But you know, we're trained to be left-brained, and I'm going to plan this and plan that. I'm not trusting that life's just going to take me somewhere. That's kind of namby-pamby.
Yeah. And well, you say that's not great advice, but it is.
It is great advice.
It is great advice.
It sounds bad advice.
Yeah, it sounds bad advice, and also there's a lot of. You said the left brain, but there's a lot of attachment to do that, isn't there? That's why it's not. That's like it sounds like logically. It sounds. Don't be stupid. Because I've said that to people sometimes. They say, "Well, okay, what? I'm just going to do nothing."
Yeah.
And it's like, so they think that the surrender is a what's the word? An atrophy. It's like giving up. But it's not, is it?
No. In the right circumstances. Like it's that, you know, that film, was it The Last Samurai with Tom Cruise?
Yeah, with Tom Cruise, yes.
And he kept getting beaten by the guy with a stick.
All the time.
And some guy comes up and goes, "You've got too many minds, no mind." And the guy goes, and then he goes into that zone of completely, and that's a kind of surrender where you stop the mind, and it's just like you go into that zone of just flowing with it. You know, that athletes know and all this kind of thing, you know.
Totally.
But the other aspect of transition is that, you know, especially this applies, especially for spiritual people and for people trained to be in their heads, that transitions happen in the context of the body. You know, the body has got a certain wisdom to it. Like, so the body knows when it's time to become a grown-up from an adolescent. The body knows when midlife's happening. The body even knows when you're approaching death. You know, the body knows, or even birth. You know, the body knows how to get you out that canal. You can't think, "I'm in the canal now. How do I get out?"
Yeah.
Just forget the mind. The body knows, and also the body's aware of all this astrological stuff that's going on in the universe. You know, like Saturn return.
Yeah.
Bang. Uranus opposition. Bang, you know, Chiron return, you know, whack, that Chiron return is midlife. It's just all the body, the mind's going, "What are you talking about? There's no proof for this." But when it hits, your body goes, "Whoa, I can feel it."
Yeah.
It's a tension that starts to build. And what do you do with that tension that's in the body? That's why all this Tai Chi and yoga is so good, because it gets us, drops awareness down into the kind of hara, into the body. This is where we know how to deal with these transitions. This is where we know, is this dream a good dream, or what do I do when this wave is coming and sweeping me away?
Yeah.
The mind, you can't think, what's my 10-point plan for...
Yeah.
Somebody said that to me at a talk once. He said, "Yeah, all right, all this transition stuff, yeah, but what's the solution?" And I'm like, what is the solution? You know, all right, when you kind of, the wave's got you, just let go and breathe. You know, it's just not the great thing about don't fight the current, because so many people are taught to fight the current.
Yeah, and we're still fighting as soon as we come out, aren't we? Even when we come out of birth, we're told it's a fight. We've got to fight for our place in the reality, fight for money, fight for competition in terms of, like, you know, status and being somebody.
Dog eat dog.
You know, competitiveness
Kill
constantly.
The competition, all that stuff.
Yeah,
we're taught there's limited resources. There is no greater. It's all a mechanical clockwork. This is the old paradigm, isn't it? That's being shifted with quantum physics. That's realizing, no, the world is much more amazing. There's more dimensions to it than we can realize. Energy's flowing through this. You know, it's particle or wave and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so even science is saying life is much more amazing now. Starting to trust there is an intelligence to life is the kind of big shift a transition's trying to teach us, because, you know, if you do step towards a dream, synchronicity can start happening. You know, that synchronicity. And people go, "Yeah, but that happened, and then that happened." And you go, "Yeah, that's synchronicity, right?
Yeah.
That's what it is."
Yeah.
And once you've got the experience of it, you go, "Oh, that's what it is."
Yeah.
You can't tell someone.
Yeah. You can't tell somebody, and it sounds great when you're sharing it. People might go, "Oh yeah, it sounds great. Life sounds really good for you." But until you've witnessed it, until you feel it, it's an energetic experience, isn't it? Until you experience it, there's no telling. There's absolutely no telling what's actually unfolding. Yeah. Because it happened. Funnily enough, didn't it happen? It happened for me and you. We in the tube. Right. So we randomly were lost that night, a little bit like we come out of something, Oxford Circus. Yeah. You was coming from somewhere else.
Out the train, there you are on the sea or something.
There you are. Then you share then I shared to you, you guys, "How are you?" Then I shared to you, "Okay, I'm contemplating writing a book." You then said, "I'm doing workshops now." Then you said, "I'm going to send you a little bit of information," and you sent me a document to read. And then at the same time, you hadn't met Anna properly, and you met Anna, and then Anna teamed up with you, and then you created something else to...
She made a little promo
film for you for the Enlightenment of Work, right? Which is the book before this one, which we're going to do a talk on as well. And it happened just the other night as well, just to throw this in there. It was just Friday gone. A number of different things, random events that occurred, that 3 or 4 different people were pointing me to go to an event by an organisation called the Band of Brothers, which is an organisation that really help deprived young children, ex-criminals or criminals to be, that are, looking at the probation services and so on, and maybe going to jail, and to really give them support to find themselves, to find their true selves, to connect to themselves, love, connect to the bigger picture, and then they set up this mentoring program over an 18-month period to really give them almost fathering, and it's only men that can do this. Men support the transition, and it's all about transition, and it's all about initiation. It's about initiating them as to, from that place of fear and lost and got no support, and the mum's been beaten up, whatever the experience is, and how to initiate them into becoming men, and men that can look after themselves and serve the greater good. And 3 or 4 different people pointed me into that place. And then lo and behold, I was invited to do a talk there on Friday. And then just randomly at the table, I ended up sitting down and speaking to Laurence Olivier's son. And
Richard?
Richard Olivier. You know Richard. And his wife, Shelley. And another guy that, just going to throw this in there as well, another guy, Paul, who wasn't supposed to be on that table, was supposed to be on the other table, come over, happened to just say, there's a guy called David Freud sit here. David Freud being the grandson of Sigmund Freud. Yeah, because Lucian Freud was David's dad. So, and then he starts talking to me about Freud, so I start having this psychological conversation with him. We have a real great connection, and he wasn't even supposed to be on that table. Right. And then when he left, he said, take my email, give me a touch, it'd be great to continue the conversation. Now, I don't know what that means, what it's leading to, what it's not leading to, it's irrelevant.
That's the way, isn't it? Synchronicity.
But the synchronicity that got me on that table, when I've even been saying, I think you might know this from looking at my video, that it would be great to do a theatre stroke show in line with what we talk about in terms of conscious awareness, overcoming your fears and sharing your story of transformation. And Richard Olivier is only doing a thing called mythodrama, which is actually which is theatre, all about Shakespeare, and all about actually creating leadership through organisations, companies and people to really find their true essence in the world.
It's very good at that stuff. I know it's brilliant at it,
So that's just an example.
So there you go. I mean, I'm sure your viewers have all got examples of synchronicity. That's where the universe is starting to move you towards something, but also synchronicity can actually move you towards destroying something, because transition is also death and rebirth. Sometimes we're moved or orchestrated so that some situation just dies or blows up or ends. I mean, if you choose a dream, like I'm going to go and be an actor, you have to say no to another dream.
Totally.
So even there's a death of, every yes has to say no to a lot of other things.
So every life is a death.
Yeah. And a transition as well will take you, one of those rough ones, when the wave gets you, will end your existing life and throw you into new life.
Yeah, that's great.
So it doesn't matter if you've got a lot of money, you're CEO of a top company, if the universe gets you and throws you, then forget it. All that life's toast.
And that's why people say sometimes, oh, I had it all, I had the big job, whatever. Because there's a film, isn't there, I Am, that guy Shadyac, who done all those films with Tom Shadyac. He said the same thing. It's like, he was making all those films, multi-billionaire, mansions, cars, out with all the stars, and then he had what you said.
Bang, and it goes, and then what usually happens is it goes, no, there's this kind of grief or anger, why all that can happen, and then you're thrown into this kind of zone, which is I call the kind of wilderness, where life gets reconfigured. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. There's kind of like, where's my old life gone? Who am? Your identity shifts, because if I'm not a director of that company, if I'm not married to that woman, then who am I? All that goes on, all these kind of inner shifts happen, and your beliefs start moving around, and the way you look at the world starts shifting. And eventually, when you move through that, this is the thing about Jesus and Buddha in the wilderness. You go through your own proverbial wilderness. On the other side is after winter, which is like winter. On the other side is of rebirth or spring. But when you're in this winter zone, if anybody's in a kind of zone like that, you think this is never going to end. It's just ongoing. This is terrible or whatever. But when the spring happens, you like life starts. The computer reboots. And have you ever had that? Like, you're being defragged, doing computer speak, and then suddenly you get this reboot, and suddenly, I feel I'm back on. Now, who am I in this version of reality? And the game rules shift.
Totally.
You know, now sometimes what was a struggle can now become much easier, and what was hard or heavy can start opening up. Or where you felt I'm this kind of spiritual person, suddenly no, all that's gone. That's all rubbish. Now I'm just this. You know, it's like a complete communication with the universe, a complete opening up, a complete living in trust, like you were talking about before we had this. You know, living where what was it you said something about the Milky Way? How could you be living in fear if you just realise you're a dot on a little dot in the Milky Way? Then you realise that, but of course it's easy to forget that in this world, because it's got its social niceties and conventions, and you must do this, and duties, and family, and bosses, and all that. So this is what transition does. It cuts right across all that crap. And that's quite strong usually. All those kind of conditions are quite strong. So a transition has to be strong enough to bust through all those. Otherwise, you'll just kind of bounce back, going nah. And sometimes, you know, transitions often use catalysts to come in. You know, like to blow your life up. A lover.
A job, end of a job, or something, something bad.
An accident, a redundancy, an illness. Those things get there to catalyse the whole process, because a transition builds up tension. You know, as tension building, you kind of think, is this the life I want to live? Am I doing it? Yeah, it sounds right. Oh, what am I worried about? Have another drink, watch another film. But this tension's building, and then you might try and avoid the tension by, I'll go and do shopping or watch computer games, but if it builds up to a point where, you know, like earthquakes, usually there's a catalysing trigger, and then boom, your life, because all that tension's got to such a point that everything has to blow up.
Energy, pure energy.
It's pure energy, and energy wants to find the path of least resistance, and where there's tension, it wants resolution. And the resolution will be the end of your life as you know it.
Totally.
And the beginning of a new life.
And that's so powerful, because micro, macro, through conscious awareness, we're realising that's what's occurring within us, how you beautifully described it. And then, but on the global transition, we're seeing that, aren't we? That we're seeing that on a planetary, global perspective at the moment, because, you know, not to say that everybody has to have, because this is happening anyway. This is happening within us anyway. That was happening when I was a criminal and I was burgling houses and I ended up in jail. That was a transition still going on of like, you know, I don't want this. I want out of this. This is somehow not serving me. And then it's like, you know, those catalysts happen to then catapult you somewhere else, for example. But then when we look at, because I'm all about, as you know, the idea of where we are as an evolving species. So, you know, so I don't know if you want to throw something in there from the sort of planetary perspective, just taking it a bit, you know, broader of how that's happening within us. And then on the planet at the moment, you mentioned earlier about the tipping point, we're getting this like, almost like this transition to just look, wake up. And I know that we might have been saying that for years, but I mean on a broad, you know, like what's going on, what's being shown to us. Like a lot of people are avoiding, but what's being shown to us of how we're communing as a species is really also saying a bit like a, you know, or that's what it feels like for me, definitely. A bit like, you know, have a look over there.
I think that actually, sounds a very big statement, that we're evolving into a new, not new species, but we're evolving to a new level of existence on this planet, because for thousands of years it's been dark, it's been war, it's been bloodshed, it's been all that old Kali Yuga, you could say, like the Indian philosophy. And what's on the horizon is, the Indians would say Sat Yuga, the kind of, from all the, you know, in a lot of prophecies it says the earth's going to get very dark. There'll be violence, greed, mayhem, destruction, all that. I'm not talking about the end of the world, but I'm talking about a difficult time. And on the other side of that is a different age where people go, what were we thinking of? We were destroying the planet. What, you know, it has to get really dark for people to go, oh, whoa. And this context of global transition and global awakening is what's triggering so many people now just having these experiences like yourself. If this was the 1950s, Simon, having this conversation, there'll be people going, what are you talking about?
We'll be hung up. We'll be hung, drawn and bloody quartered.
But now, I meet lots of people, like through alternatives and other places, in the 20s and 30s, are going, I just totally know what you're talking about. That didn't happen 20 years ago because the kind of generation coming up are getting it really quickly. They're waking up. They're realising that the planet has not got limited time to carry on doing the same stuff that, you know, like the companies like Monsanto, what they're doing in India and elsewhere, that we can't do that anymore. But they need to do that to give us a context of going, stop, change. It has to get dark. There are a lot of prophecies around Mayan, Hopi, Aztec, all these prophecies, it says the same stuff. It's going to get very dark. Don't worry about it. There's something better on the horizon.
Yeah.
And just look around, how quickly technology is shifting, how quickly the whole communication, global village is happening, how quickly people are kind of getting interested in all this spiritual stuff.
Yeah.
It's happening at rapid
speed. Yeah, I watched a great documentary the other day called The New We, and it was about a guy that went around 10 sustainable villages, and it was just showing what's emerging.
Yeah.
And one thing I love about the human species is we're a little bit slow sometimes in the way I feel, the way that we react. But when we really do come together in unity, when we really do come together, and it often happens, unfortunately, when there's a real big disaster. Yeah. But when we really do come together, we have created so much magic, and within us, there is that aspect of dark, and there is that aspect of anger and war and so on. But when we really come together, what is potentially possible? We're just watching what's emerging through not just about eco villages but what is potentially possible when we move out of separation and into unity. When we move out of aloneness and into that idea of we're never alone. We're unified, and when I say unified, I mean acceptance of all diversity, and into that non-judgmental space where we're not just a human being, you're Steve and I'm Simon. It's actually, no, we're part of something that's this, like you said, a pulsating, driving energy.
Yeah.
That's collectively creating it all.
Building, isn't it?
Wow.
And that wave is coming to end all the separation from, self, body, nature, community, source energy.
Yeah.
And once that's gone, if we got this unity consciousness, can you think of sending in a panzer division over, or tank division in that? You would go, what were you talking about?
It wouldn't register. You'd be like, this doesn't even compute.
The arms industry would make no sense.
No
There's
way.
a lot of things that we've been doing on the planet will make no sense.
Yeah.
And I reckon 30 to 50 years' time we'll be going,
yeah.
Because it's getting to that crisis point on the planet where we've got a choice. Either we go that way, which, we've had that choice, nuclear destruction, complete. Yeah, the planet could go that way. Let's destroy the planet. Let's destroy our home. That sounds a good idea.
Yeah, great idea. Thumbs up. Thumbs up for that. Yeah. Why let's just blow up the whole planet. Indescribable, most fascinating thing in the whole damn whatever's created. It's let's just kill it.
What's that film, Dr. Strangelove? You remember that one?
No.
Peter Sellers riding on a nuclear bomb, going yeehaw and all that. That's the kind of crazy mentality we're kind of coming out of. But the generation coming up now is is realizing that we can't do that.
Yeah, and it's so rich when you see on TED Talks and stuff boys and girls of 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and I was speaking to somebody the other day 16, 17 and a young again a 22-year-old, and they're all just talking this same language.
Yeah.
And it really, I can feel it in my body now. I can feel the heat come through my body as I said that, of just when you start talking like this, you do feel alone. And I know some of you watching out there, you might be just, emerging into some of this information now, and you feel alone, and you think, look at the world, it's not really happening, but it is happening. And even if it's slightly, what's it called, the boiling frog, right? Yeah. There's that love and conscious awareness and so on. It might seem like a boiling frog, like nothing's happening, but I'm telling you, the youth of today are coming through, and like you said, they are that. That is not right. We should not. Why are they not getting fed? Why are they not being fed? Why are we at war there? And they are the new generation.
Yeah. The good thing about the boiling frog exercise, the idea was if you boil a frog very slowly in water, it doesn't realise that it dies.
Yeah.
But actually, the reality is the frog jumps out.
Yeah. Okay.
It does jump out.
Yeah.
I've asked some scientists. They said no, it definitely jumps out. And so the idea is that it's building, and at a certain point we're going to jump.
Yeah.
And it will almost be overnight there'll be a lot of changes. People, it's kind of a building tension in the world for change, isn't it?
Yeah.
And one example would be money, capitalism.
Totally.
Very resilient, and actually capitalism. Of course we need money systems, but it's an old paradigm.
Yeah.
What will happen is once we kind of shift into we'll need a new system.
Yeah.
Basically, that's what we're waiting for.
Yeah.
A new system that can hold this kind of not of scarcity and debt, but of actually collaboration.
A sacred system. Yeah. Which is what Charles Eisenstein is talking about. Sacred economics, and they're talking about making money, making exchange sacred again.
Yeah.
Where actually we're showing up to bring our gifts of who we are to the table, and then how we can collectively share that to create. And again, moving from out of I to we.
Yeah.
It's it's I to me. It's what can we create here in community? talking. This is beautiful conversation because it's really
we could go on and on.
Yeah, I know we could go on and on. It's really rich at this point. You know, it's really it's of this time and it's where we are, and that's what I like. What I like is that I think to throw out to you guys watching is that this isn't some airy-fairy spiritual idea that is, maybe possible. This is happening. It's happened within me and Steve. It's happened. We're at different generations, and it's happening within us. We totally feel this, and it's also happening within who we meet and where we're going and how we live, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if it can occur here, that means it's occurring across millions of other people, and that means that it can occur to you, whoever you are, wherever you are. This is this isn't an exclusive. Do you know what I mean? It's not an exclusive experience.
It's not an exclusive club or anything.
Yeah.
The wave's happening, and you can either surf with it or it'll just go like tsunami over you.
Yeah.
That's the choice you've got, really.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Well, I think we're going to wrap that one up there.
Okay.
Have a big hug as always.
Okay. Great talking to you, Sutton.
Really great.
Yeah.
And I always love Steve because he's the originator of these scarves.
Yeah.
He's got a few more than me, but that's okay. I'm working on it. Okay?
I just want to clarify about the generation thing. I'm actually the older one.
Yeah.
It may not look it, but I'm actually
Exactly. But only just. As always, guys, wherever you are, and you might be experiencing some of the stuff Steve said from a place of it's hard, it's struggle right now, but conversations like this and other people out there are bringing real beautiful information to you. There's great resources to support your journey, as Simon on the Sofa is part of that. So take care wherever you are, enjoy your life, you are a miracle, and like Steve said, if you get kicked and pushed out somewhere, don't worry. What did you say? Accept.
trust, surrender.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You'll be fine. What's the worst can happen?
There you go. Take care, guys.